viewers, this is Qamar Cheema, and I'm thrilled to have with me Mr. Aizaz Ahmed Chaudhry. He has served as in the Pakistani Foreign Service for 37 years, and he has also served as a Foreign Secretary of Pakistan for over 3 years. Ambassador Saab, thank you very much for your time for the NHS media.
Thank you for having me,
Thank you. Sir, you recently wrote an article in the Dawn, and you have basically spoken. The name of the article was "Shifting Sands," and you have highlighted so many points there. But I wanted to ask you, and that how you are looking this Pakistan-India relations, particularly since you have said that there is a cost for the miscommunication. So you are basically saying the prolonged communication gap with Pakistan will not be cost-free for India's long-term prosperity. How do you justify and how you make your this point, sir?
You see, for the last 6.5 years, there is practically no dialogue at any level between India and Pakistan, which is somewhat unusual for two major states, two nuclear armed states who are neighbors. Um, Whenever the countries don't interact with each other, misunderstandings grow, and there is always, room for some miscalculation, and therefore it is absolutely essential that both countries should review their present approach and engage in a dialogue. Pakistan has sent a very clear signal several times to India, but it appears that the Indian leadership at this time is not keen to engage with Pakistan. I have interacted with some Indians of opinion makers and opinion builders, and they think that at this time India's attention is focused more on Indo-Pacific strategy, on relations with China, and on building India's economy to the level of $5 trillion. They're also busy with G20. And therefore, Pakistan is not on the radar of Indian leadership. My own sense is that if India were to raise its profile globally and regionally, it has to have a peaceful, a quiet, a friendly neighborhood, and not a turbulent neighborhood, not a turbulent relationship with its neighbors. Otherwise, there will always be instability in the region, and that may not be good for any country of the region, including India. Then there is also the bigger picture, which is that US has chosen India as the strategic partner, no doubt about it. Pakistan has also moved closer to China through economic programs of cooperation, but also both countries enjoy each other's trust. Now, the question is whether India would want to sharpen such alignments in South Asia. I don't think it will be for the good of the region or for India itself. Thirdly, I think the objective of creating a Hindu Rashtra, a Hindu state within India, and there are so many Indians and non-resident Indians who are speaking about it. They are worried about the commotion that may happen in India if the minorities are marginalized, especially Muslims and Christians. And my sense is that the policy towards Pakistan being pursued by India falls somewhere in this larger domestic dynamic. So on balance, when I say that it will not be cost-free for India, this communication gap, I think it is out of goodness for the region, out of goodness for India and Pakistan, because the people of the two countries cannot afford to have prolonged confrontation. And if I've also heard and read some articles, recently I read an article in ORF saying that India would like to marginalize Pakistan or isolate Pakistan. And it is, I don't think a country of Pakistan's size and Pakistan's capabilities can be marginalized. I think this is a flawed strategy. So that's why my suggestion in this article has been that it would be better for India, for Pakistan, for the region as a whole, if both countries stay engaged and discover the common ground on which they can work together.
So, Ambassador Sahab, it's time and again Pakistan is saying that, oh, this is Hindu Rashtra, these are the Hindus who are dominating. So, if India is a democracy like Pakistan, so what if Pakistan wants to be an Islamic country and India wants to be an Hindu state? So, don't you think this argument doesn't hold a value, and we should leave this to the people of India, whether they decide they want to live in a Hindu state or they want to live in a secular state?
I fully agree with you. I fully agree with you because it's the at the end of the day, it's the people of India, it's the leadership of India which has to make its own choices. What I was referring to was the statements coming from several important non-resident Indians who fear that this kind of approach, this kind of majoritarian, communitarian approach that India is following uh, would take India or drift India away from its pluralism and secularism and other credentials that its founders had thought. Now, it's for Indians to make a choice whether they still want to create a Hindu Rashtra. It's for them. My only worry is with regard to Pakistan and the approach and policy towards Pakistan, and to an extent about the situation in occupied Kashmir and the Muslim minorities in India. So I think it is in that sense one feels that if there is a commotion in India, of course it's going to affect the whole region and affect Pakistan as well. Other than that, it's of course their country and their call.
So, Ambassador Saab, this question with Pakistan is requesting or asking or suggesting time and again to India that they should talk. And for example, in your article, you have mentioned that Pakistan initiated Kartarpur corridor. Pakistan was responsible enough in the Indian strike on Balakot. But India, and in particularly as well in the India's BrahMos missile, which landed in Pakistan, but India is only interested in LOC, the back channeling talks which happened. So how do you see that? Don't you think this is a weakness of Pakistan? That time and again, this is Pakistan which is requesting, suggesting India, and we should give a time to India, and Pakistan should prosperous economically and should have political stability. Other than that, they are not going to come back to talk to us. Don't you think this will have a more solid ground rather than suggesting and asking them? Because there are some elements in India they believe that we should let Pakistan make mistakes because they are on the wrong track in terms of political instability, financial uncertainty, rising resurgence of terrorism. So, how do you see this, sir?
Yeah, I have no difference of opinion uh, from you on this matter. Pakistan should focus internally, but at the same time, if Pakistan is making peace overtures towards its eastern neighbor, I don't think it is a sign of weakness. I think it is a sign of confidence. It's a sign of maturity. It's a sign of responsibility that Pakistan wants to have peaceful coexistence with India, that Pakistan wants to have peaceful, normalized, friendly, and cooperative relations with India, good neighborly relations with India. What's so weak about it? Nothing. I think it's the right policy to take. But if India does not want to engage with Pakistan, of course there will be no peace process. But that does not mean that Pakistan should shun its desire for peace. Pakistan should always, we are not begging for a dialogue with India, not at all. The only thing Pakistan is doing is that we say that we will continue to take the kind of initiatives we have recently taken. We know that India has not reciprocated on any of them, and yet we think that this is the right approach and Pakistan should continue to follow that. And that's the length and breadth of it. As far as the internal situation is concerned, I fully agree with you that Pakistan should put his own house in order, its political house in order, its economic house in order, gather strength, and then negotiate from a position of strength. But while we do so, we must always remain committed to a peaceful South Asia.
So, Ambassador Saab, you have spoken about the camp politics in South Asia, and you have mentioned that the South Asia should not become a ground for the camp politics. Uh, do you believe there are elements in the West and in India? They believe that Pakistan is fully siding with the Chinese. They have put all their eggs in the Chinese basket. And as you mentioned, that India is getting closer with the India has become closer and a strategic partner with the Americans. So, don't you think that this is something very natural? This is to happen, or do you think that the regional countries can play a role? For instance, the Indians are saying that we are neutral because we are getting energy from Russia, while making the Americans annoyed. So we are not that much into the camp politics. So, how what do you make of this, sir?
Yeah, this is an approach that Pakistan has followed, and also India, that we want to have our strategic autonomy. I know that Pakistan wants to have balanced relations with all major powers, with China, with US, with Russia, with others as well. And it is my sense that India too wants to maintain its strategic autonomy and wants to have relations with all powers in their own right. So there is, I think that is pretty good, and I think both countries are following that approach. If and I don't think anybody can take exception to that. What I am referring to is that if alignments in South Asia get sharpened, and if Pakistan and India are not talking to each other and instead relying on the intervention or intercession of some third state or third party in making India and Pakistan sit and talk, that means that these two countries, Pakistan and India, are giving up our own space of bilateralism, and inviting or giving the space to a third country, which of course will use it as a leverage against both countries. And that is why I believe that Pakistan and India would be much better off if they stay engaged rather than leaving the space to third countries who come and then become a bridge between India and Pakistan. I think these two countries should behave as a mature nations, and should talk to each other directly about all the issues that are on the table.
Well, Ambassador Saab, you have mentioned about the third country, but most recently it was Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif who requested the Emiratis that they should come and help us in having talks with India. So India is time and again saying that we don't want the third party intervention. Even the former President Donald Trump was snubbed by the Indian Foreign Office. So letting this third parties Pakistan's choice. This is not coming from India. Or do you think that this 2003 ceasefire agreement, the formalization or the normalization of the 2003 ceasefire agreement was basically a third party act?
You see, there have been instances where the United States and some other powers also have been making efforts to make both countries manage their conflicts and find some kind of solution to their bilateral issues. There's no doubt about it. But my view, which I have expressed in this, is that we should not be going in that direction. In my view, both nations should talk to each other directly and should try to address and resolve these issues. I am not in favor of giving the space to third countries in that sense. Yes, if they want to nudge both countries towards talking to each other, there's no harm in it. But I don't think India and Pakistan should really leave it for the third countries to look. For example, in February 2019, when uh, India carried out a strike on Balakot. And when we read Secretary Pompeo, it is probably India either with approached the US, or the US itself took the initiative. But Secretary Pompeo says that they resolved or they played a role in calming down and not so that there is no nuclear showdown. Uh, uh, I think Pakistan and India should be able to talk to each other. That would be much more productive, provided they engage in a meaningful talk. But unfortunately, it has not happened because in one party, namely India, is simply not ready, simply not talking to Pakistan, and thinks that it can marginalize and isolate Pakistan, which I believe is a flawed strategy and gives more space to third parties and others to intervene in matters between Pakistan and India.
So, Ambassador Saab, this is an election year in Pakistan, and the next year is an election year in India. So, in these circumstances, we have recently seen that the two foreign ministers, Dr. Jaishankar and Bilawal Bhutto, exchanged hot words in New York, and they have been lamenting each other. So, do you think that there is a possibility, particularly for any kind of initiative, particularly in this next 1 year?
You see, on the hot words exchange, I have always believed, and I have written an article there on war of words. I believe that hostile rhetoric should be eschewed, should not be undertaken. I think it unnecessarily raises tensions and it resolves nothing. That's my view. Maybe in the short term, uh, some points are gained. Domestic audience is also satisfied. But in the medium to long term, mutual hostile rhetoric is not good. I see that Indian External Affairs Minister is always harping on the mantra of Pakistan being a epicenter of terrorism. I think that was what provoked Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto to to respond. So I think it's important that both countries should not go down that path. As far as the elections in Pakistan this year and elections in India next year, if we have stable governments in both countries and both muster enough political will to talk to each other, then I do see a possibility, and I have identified two major issues. One is terrorism, the other is Jammu and Kashmir dispute. And on terrorism, I have already indicated that Pakistan has done enough, in fact, a lot. And now Pakistan feels that there are actually footprints and fingerprints on from across the border on the incidents of terrorism inside Pakistan. So this subject needs to be really talked about because I believe it should be viewed as a common enemy. And the second subject, Jammu and Kashmir dispute, I know the positions are quite entrenched. However, I believe that on occasions the two countries have talked and expressed resolve to find a solution. And one such occasion was 4.4 formula in 2007. And I think that formula can be revisited. It has the potential for further negotiation and with adaptation, whatever is required, uh, that gives more comfort to both sides. I think there will be a possibility for the two countries to engage and resolve this long standing dispute.
Okay, so Mr. Ambassador, this is the last question to you. So you have also spoken about the some out of the box thinking in your article. So, what do you think that India is all ready, or will what out of box thinking can India suggest to us, and what out of box thinking we can suggest to India? So, what do you make of this argument, please?
Well, you see, there are a number of peace constituencies that one can work on. And the easiest and the low hanging fruit, of course, is the bilateral trade. And I know that much of bilateral trade is occurring through Dubai, which is costly for the consumers of both countries and the traders of both countries. And therefore, I think one can always focus on that without costing much. Climate change is a common challenge for the whole of South Asia, and I think that's another agenda on which both countries should engage. The water issues, and recently we saw India issuing notices, and I think it is important for India and Pakistan to realize that water is a very, very sensitive issue, I'm sure, for both countries. And therefore, I think a regular dialogue, a proper political dialogue, in addition to the dialogue at the Permanent Commission for Indus Waters, should also be undertaken. And then finally, on these issues of terrorism and Jammu and Kashmir dispute, which I have explained that we both should be. So there is I think there is a minimal agenda which is available for both countries and both will benefit. And not to forget people to people contact, especially religious tourism, and making it easy for divided families to meet each other. I think this is a pretty wholesome agenda which will favor not only Pakistan but also India. So India has to rise above whatever present policy they have adopted to see the larger picture and the broader benefits that would accrue from a good neighborly relations with Pakistan.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Aizaz Chaudhry, for speaking with the NHS Media. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.